Hello and welcome to a trash summary of Week 8 in the Overwatch League, plus the community MVP results from Week 8 in the Overwatch League as well. The primary highlights from this week were the Chinese teams in a roundabout as everyone beat everyone, effectively. San Francisco went down to both LA teams, and Seoul has set themselves up as a potential top 3 or, well, just a top team. A quick note before I get into the matches, instead of doing one sentence summaries, I'm just going to do a positive and negative for each team in each match instead, as I personally think that's easier to do, shorter to do, and better to do. First match this week was between the Guangzhou Charge and the Shanghai Dragons, which the Shanghai Dragons won 0-3. They won the PAL 1-2, Route 66 2-3, and Eichenwald 1-2. This left Guangzhou at 0 wins and 1 loss and a map ratio of -3, and the opposite for Shanghai, 1 win, 0 losses, and a map ratio of +3. Now, moving on to the community MVP votes, Fleta easily got the 3 points with his percentage of 82.1. Lip got the 2 points with his percentage of 59.5, while Void got the 1 point with his percentage of 35.7. For Guangzhou's positive, I put Krong has an impressive showing on his debut, as he played fairly well in the loss. And for Guangzhou's negative, they got absolutely boomed by Shanghai. And I don't really think there's a bigger negative than getting absolutely boomed in your first match. Anyway, for Shanghai's positive, I put strong win to start the season. But for the negative, I put will we need to see DM and Ding again? Because Flutter and Lip look really solid, and if they continue to play like that, I don't really see the need for DM and Ding to play unless it's a Widow specialist and a Pharah Mercy specialist with D-Ding and Iziaki. Now, moving on to the match between the Chengdu Hunters and the Hangzhou Spark. Hangzhou won in a reverse sweep, first losing Ilios 2-1 and then Dorado 1-0. But Hangzhou would take Numbani 2-3, Paris 2-3, and Oasis 1-2. This left Chengdu at 0 wins and 1 loss, with a map ratio of -1, and Hangzhou at 1 win, 0 losses, and a map ratio of +1. Now, moving on to the community MVP votes, Jinmu would take the 3 points with his percentage of 61.9. Godsby would take the 2 points with his percentage of 57.1, and Kusui would take the 1 point with his percentage of 41.7. For Chengdu's positive, I put Jinmu and Leave look like one of the stronger DPS duos, and by that I mean one of the stronger DPS duos in the league, as they did really well in this match. And for the negative, I put they lost a 2-0 lead, and there's no real bigger negative than getting reverse swept in your opening match. In your opening week, that is, in my opinion. For Hangzhou's positive, I put they came back from the brinks of defeat to win their season opener, which is really good, but the negative is they almost lost 3-0 in their season opener, which is a big moral boom, in my opinion. It can really hurt the mentality of players, so good on them for reverse sweeping and winning the match. Moving on to Toronto Defiant versus Boston Uprising. Toronto won the match 3-1, first winning Busan 2-0, then Rialto 1-0, but then they lost Hollywood 0-3. But then Toronto wrapped up the match, winning Hanamura 2-1. This left Toronto at 2 wins and 4 losses, with a map ratio of -4, and this left them 16th at the end of the next day. And for Boston, this left them at 1 win and 5 losses, with a map ratio of -12, which left them 19th at the end of the next day. Moving on to the community MVP votes, Surefour got the 3 points, with his percentage of 59.5. Kariv got the 2 points, with his percentage of 53.6, and Agility's got the 1 point, with his percentage of 44, which edged out Jerry by just over 1%. For Toronto's positive, I put the solid win has put them back on track. After 4 straight losses, this win will surely help as a motivator for the players on this team. And their negative, they don't exactly look like a playoffs team yet, unless they can improve more. For Boston's positive, I put Jerry got more highlights and Brucean actually played. So, Brucean got a debut and Jerry did Jerry things. I reckon that's a positive. And negative, the season is looking more grim as Mufin has now disappeared due to certain circumstances, which I will not name in this video. Moving on to the Valiant versus the Dynasty, Seoul won this match 0-3, winning O.W.L 0-2, Dorado 1-2, and Eichenwald 2-3. This left the Valiant record at 1 win and 2 losses, with a map ratio of -4, and this left Seoul's record at 1 win and 0 losses with a map ratio of +3. Moving on to the community MVP votes, Prophet easily got the 3 points with his percentage of 84.5. Fitz got the 2 points with his percentage of 59.5, and Marvel got the 1 point with his percentage of 54.8. For the Valiant's positive, I just put Dreamer got the debut because I really couldn't think of any other positive in this match for the Valiant. I mean, KSP popped off once or twice, but not much really happened for them. And the negative is it's their second straight 0-3 loss. And for Seoul's side, their positive was a strong win to start the season. You can't do better than a 3-0 win to start the season, in my opinion. And the negative is none because they did extremely well and they handled the Valiant, well, extremely well. Moving on to the Shock versus the Gladiators. The Gladiators won in 5 maps, 1-3. They first took Ilios, 0-2, then Route 66, 0-1. The Shock took Nambani, 3-2, and then they tied on Volskaya, 3-3. But then Gladiators took Oasis, 0-2, to win the match. This left the Shock's record at 1 win and 1 loss, with a map ratio of 0. And it left the Gladiators record at 1 win and 1 loss, with a map ratio of +1. Moving on to the community MVP votes, Birdring got the 3 points, with his percentage of 63.1. Space got the 2 points, with his percentage of 59.5, and OG got the 1 point, with his percentage of 58.3. For the Shock's positive, I put ANS, he's not that bad, he did pretty well on Ilios in my opinion, and he popped off several times. But the negative is, it was a very ugly loss in my opinion, as they just kept doing swaps, and it didn't help them a lot of the time. For the Gladiators positive, they beat the reigning champions, nothing better than that, and the negative, none, because they just beat the reigning champions. Now, moving on to the first match of day 2, the Chengdu Hunters versus the Shanghai Dragons. Chengdu won this 3-0, winning Nepal 2-0, Dorado 2-1, and Eichenwald 1-0. This has left Chengdu's record at 1 win and 1 loss, with a map ratio of +2, and this left them 8th at the end of the day. For Shanghai, this has left them at 1 win and 1 loss, with a map ratio of 0, and this left them equal 9th at the end of the day. Moving on to the community MVP votes, Jinmu got the 3 points again, with his percentage of 84.5. Amang got the 2 points, with his percentage of 58.3, and Leaf got the 1 point, with his percentage of 42.9. For Chengdu's positive, I put they absolutely dominated a predicted top 2 team, and that's really good, and the negative is none again because they did really well in this match. For Shanghai's positive, I put none. I mean, I guess Ding and DM playing could have been a positive, but they were dominated in all areas in this match, Shanghai, in my opinion. And for the negative, they got absolutely obliterated. And what worse negative is there than getting obliterated? Moving on to Hangzhou versus Guangzhou. Guangzhou won it in 5 maps, winning 2-3. Guangzhou won Oasis first, 0-2. Then Hangzhou won Dorado, 1-0. Guangzhou won Ikamod, 0-1. Then Hangzhou won Hanamura, 3-2. And then Guangzhou won the match by winning Nepal, 1-2. This left Hangzhou's record at 1 win and 1 loss, with a map ratio of 0, which left them equal 9th at the end of the day. And for Guangzhou, this left them at 1 win and 1 loss, with a map ratio of -2, which left them equal 11th at the end of the day. Moving on to the community MVP votes, Happy got the 3 points with his percentage of 58.3. Krong got the 2 points with his percentage of 48.8, and Nero got the 1 point with his percentage of 39.3. For Hangzhou's positive, I put they're not easier to beat, as the teams that they're playing clearly struggle against them, but Hangzhou clearly do have their struggles at the same time as well. They're not easy to beat, but they also have trouble in finding their wins. And their negative is, well, they let this win slip away from them. They got it back 2-2, and they just let Oasis slip away. For Guangzhou's positive, they got their first win. And for their negative, I reckon their main tank might be a bit of a weak spot. Rio could probably pick up the pace a little in my opinion, as he's going to be going up against players such as Gushwei, Stand 1, Ameng, and Fisher in the main tank battle in that region. Moving on to the Florida Mayhem versus the Atlanta Reign. Atlanta won it 0-3, first winning Busan 1-2, then Route 66 3-4, and Eichenwald 2-3. This left the Mayhem's record at 2 wins and 4 losses, with a map ratio of -5, and this has left them at 17th at the end of the day. For Atlanta, they are at 3 wins and 1 loss, with a map ratio of +7, and this has left them 5th at the end of the day. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Edison got the 3 points with his percentage of 75. Baby Bay got the 2 points with his percentage of 65.5. And Gator got the 1 point with his percentage of 47.6. For Florida's positive, I put no shame in losing to Atlanta. They did really well on each of these maps. It wasn't a pushover for Atlanta in every single one. Florida definitely did push them at certain stages in the maps. But the negative is their map differential is now suffering because of this 3-0 loss, and it has put them below Toronto now. Atlanta's positive is a strong win propels them back into the top 5, and the negative is not every map was an absolute squash like the ending scoreline shows it to be. Most maps were extremely close, and it wasn't super easy for Atlanta to win. Moving on to the Seoul Dynasty versus the LA Gladiators. Seoul won this match in 4 maps, winning it 3-0. They first won Nepal 2-1, then Rialto 3-2, but then the teams tied on Eichenwald 3-3, but then Seoul finished the match by winning on Hanamura 2-1. This left Seoul's record at 2 wins and 0 losses, with a map ratio of +6, which has left them first at the end of the day. And this has left the Gladiators' record at 1 win and 2 losses, with a map ratio of -2, and this has left them 13th in the standings at the end of the day. Moving on to the community MVP votes. Fitz got the 3 points with his percentage of 67.9. Prophet got the 2 points with his percentage of 66.7, which was 1 vote less than Fitz, and Marvel got the 1 point with his percentage of 61.9. For Seoul's positive, well, it's a second straight 3-0 win. Well, there aren't many better ways to start the season. And the negative is none. It's a great start to the season. A positive for the Glads is, well, they did come close at stages. That's the only thing I could really think of. And the negative is losing 3-0 is not the best way to back up your win against the San Francisco Shock. Moving on to the Valiant versus the Shock. Valiant won the match 3-1. First winning Busan 3-1. Then the Shock took Dorado 3-4. But then Valiant won Numbani 6-5. And Paris 3-2. This left the Valiant's record at 2 wins and 2 losses, with a map ratio of -2, which has left them equal length at the end of the day. For the Shock, this has left them at 1 win and 2 losses, with a map ratio of -2, which has left them 14th at the end of the day. Moving on to the community MVP votes. KSP got the 3 points, with his percentage of 89.3. McGravy got the 2 points, with his percentage of 73.8. And KSF got the 1 point with his percentage of 48.8. For the Valiant's positive, I put they beat the Shock because that's really good, and the negative is none because they beat the Shock and it's really good. For San Fran's positive, I put Violet is in good form. He did fairly well in this match, maybe not enough to carry them to victory, but I reckon he did really well in this match. And the negative, it's the Shock's second straight loss. Well, they did start the year last year at 1-2, so you never know what might happen. Now, moving on to the community MVP leaderboards. Carpe and Exy are still tied in first on 15 points. Corey is still in third on 11 points, and Hopper and Glister are still tied in 4th on 9 points. Surefour and KSP have entered the top 10, being tied in 6th on 7 points, while in 8th tied on 6 points there's Haksal and Sado, while Jinmu and Edison have also entered the top 10. I will let you guys pause the video and read the rest for yourselves. Moving on to the Overwatch League standings. Seoul is in 1st, moving up 13 spots since they were in 14th last week since they haven't played. Vancouver is down 1 spot to 2nd, while New York and Philadelphia both still hold 3rd and 4th. Atlanta are up 1 spot to 5th, while Paris are down 1 spot to 6th since Atlanta has passed them. London are still in 7th, while Chengdu have gone up 6 spots from 14th to be in 8th place. Shanghai and Hangzhou have both gone up 5 spots to be tied in 9th, while Guangzhou have gone up 3 spots to be tied in 11th, with the Valiant who have gone down 3 spots. The Gladiators have gone up 6 spots to 13th, while the Shock have dipped 12 spots to 14th. The Washington Justice have dipped 5 spots to 15th, while Toronto has dipped 4 spots to 16th. The Mayhem have dipped 8 spots to 17th, the Outlaws have dipped 7 spots to 18th, and Boston have dipped 6 spots to 19th, and Dallas is still in 20th. Thank you to all who have watched this video and please subscribe, and a huge thank you to the 84 people who voted in this week's community MVP polls.